That intense surge of motivation, you know the one that makes you feel like you can conquer the world, well, it's actually chemically designed to be volatile and temporary. It guarantees that your emotional high is going to be followed by a crash, and then stagnation. We're going to show you why that feeling of being stuck isn't your fault. It's a predictable failure of your dopamine system. Seriously, it's not a character flaw or a lack of willpower, it's just a feature of your brain's operating system. And in this explainer, we're going to give you the user manual. Okay, let's really dive into this, because if you get this one idea, everything else falls into place. This isn't just some catchy phrase. It's basically a law of neuroscience. Your brain is wired so that the more excitement you feel for a new goal, the bigger that initial high, the more certain it is that a deep, motivation-killing crash is waiting right around the corner. It's not a bug, you see. It is the system. We take it so personally, like it's some kind of failure on our part. But really, it's just a predictable chemical seesaw.
I mean, you know this feeling, right? On Monday, you're on fire. You're mapping out this brilliant new plan, you're buying the domain name, you're telling all your friends. You feel completely unstoppable. But then Friday rolls around, and the very thought of opening that same document, it just fills you with dread. It's like a wall of resistance. So what happened? Where did all that energy go? What's really going on here? Well, that's what we're here to unpack. Not with some fuzzy advice about just be more disciplined, but with the hard science of what's happening inside your brain.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the motivation paradox to reframe the whole problem. Then we'll map out that cycle of the high and the crash. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of your brain on motivation. Then comes the solution, the prefrontal cortex intervention. From there, we'll get practical and build your sustainment strategy, and we'll lap it all up with a new way to think about it. Motivation is the signal.
So let's jump right into our first section. We need to dismantle the single biggest myth about motivation. You know that feeling of being stuck, of feeling lazy or uncommitted? That is not you failing. It's your brain sending you a very specific, very predictable signal that, hey, its resources are running low. We've been taught to treat this feeling with shame, but what if we started treating it with strategy instead?
So here's the difference between the story we tell ourselves and what's actually happening. On the left, that's the common belief. My problem is I just don't have enough willpower. I'm not dedicated enough. We frame it as a moral failure. But the neurological reality on the right is totally different. Willpower, self-control, focus, these aren't just abstract ideas. They are real physical functions in your brain that use up a ton of energy. They're finite. So your problem isn't a lack of character, it's a resource management problem. Okay, so if it really is a resource problem, let's map out the exact cycle that drains those resources so dang effectively. This is that vicious loop that I'm betting has kept you starting new things with all this passion only to abandon them a few weeks later, leaving behind a trail of half-finished projects and, honestly, kind of shattered confidence.
So it all starts with step one, the anticipation surge. You get a new idea and bam, your brain just floods with dopamine. It's this incredible high. But then you hit step two, the effort barrier. This is where the actual work begins. The boring, tedious stuff, the novelty is gone. This immediately triggers step three, the prediction error. Your brain basically goes, wait a minute, the reward I'm getting from doing this work is way less than I thought it would be. And that leads right to step four, the dopamine crash. That's the stuck feeling. And what does a brain in withdrawal do? It looks for another hit. So you jump to step five. You seek out some new, shiny, novel idea to get that dopamine surge back. And the whole cycle starts over again. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. Your brain's reward system is absolutely in love with the fantasy on the left. You know, the exciting idea of the final reward, crossing the finish line, launching the product, whatever it is. It showers that fantasy with dopamine. But it actively resists, it practically punishes the reality on the right, the monotonous, difficult, tedious process to get there. And that's the fatal flaw in all of this. Our brain rewards the destination, but it punishes the journey. All right, so we've seen the cycle from the outside. Now let's go a little deeper. Let's pop the hood and look at the specific chemicals and brain structures that are actually running this whole show. This is where we go from just feeling the problem to really, truly understanding it. And here is the most crucial distinction of all. That massive dopamine surge you feel at the start of something new, it is not a reward for doing the work. It's a reward simply for anticipating a future reward.
It is the neurochemical of wanting, not having. It's what drives us to explore and seek out new things. It's an evolutionary feature to get us moving. But here's the kicker. It has zero investment in you actually finishing the job.
And this brings us to the actual mechanism of the crash, something called the dopamine prediction error. Your brain is basically a prediction machine. It makes a bet. It says, hey, this new project is going to feel amazing. But then the real, tedious work starts and the reward just isn't there. Reality is so much less rewarding than the anticipation was. And when your brain detects that huge gap, it doesn't just lower your dopamine, it crashes it. That stuck feeling, that's your brain's error signal screaming, abort mission, this is a bad deal.
And this chart just shows it so clearly. Your brain anticipates this 100% massive dopamine payoff. But the actual minute-by-minute effort of the work itself, it only gives you maybe a 20% return. You are literally operating at a massive neurochemical deficit. So is it any wonder you feel drained and unmotivated? Your brain is telling you loud and clear that this activity is 80% less valuable than it first thought. And just to make things worse, there's a second thing happening at the same time. Ego depletion. Okay, so the part of your brain in charge of logic and focus and self-control, that's your prefrontal cortex, or PFC for short. Well, it runs on a very limited tank of gas. All that intense focus and planning you do during that initial excitement phase, it burns through that fuel like a rocket. So at the exact moment your dopamine crashes, your tank for self-control also hits empty. It's the perfect storm for procrastination. You have zero motivation and zero willpower left to push through it.
So, is this whole thing just hopeless? Absolutely not. Because while that dopamine crash is happening in the older, more emotional parts of your brain, you have a secret weapon. It's that same prefrontal cortex. If we can learn how to use it strategically, we can build a manual override for that automated crash.
So here's the battle that's happening inside your head. Your limbic system, that's your emotional brain, is basically throwing a toddler-sized tantrum. It's screaming, "Stop! This is boring! This isn't rewarding! Let's go find something new and shiny." The job of your PFC is to provide what scientists call top-down control. It is literally the adult in the room. It can look at that screaming limbic system and say, look, I get it, I hear you, but we're going to keep going anyway, because this is what matters for our long-term goals.
Okay, and that brings us to the really practical part. How do we actually build that manual override? The key is, it's not about trying to feel more motivated. It's about building a concrete, structural strategy that works even when, especially when, you feel zero motivation. We call it the sustainment strategy. This strategy has three main parts. First, we're going to lower the initiation friction using something called a minimum viable action. Second, we'll externalize accountability, which is kind of like delegating the tough decisions away from your tired brain. And third, we're going to gamify the process, which is all about shifting your rewards from way out in the future to right here, right now.
All right, let's break down that first one. The old way is on the left. I have to feel motivated to work for 2 hours. You're just waiting for a feeling that might never come. It's a recipe for failure. The new way is to completely ignore your feelings and commit to a minimum viable action, an MVA. Your new goal isn't write a chapter. Your new goal is open the document and write one sentence, or just put on my running shoes. You make the action so ridiculously small that it becomes harder not to do it, even when your brain is totally depleted.
Next up, strategy 2, externalize accountability. Remember, your prefrontal cortex is tired. Don't ask it to make another hard decision. Instead, you pre-program the choice ahead of time using what's called an implementation intention. It's a simple if-then rule. For instance, if it is 9 a.m. on Monday, then I will open my writing document. See, the decision is already made. You're not debating whether to work. You're just running a pre-written script, and that saves a phenomenal amount of mental energy.
And finally, our third strategy, gamify the process. We already know that far-off reward isn't going to give us the daily dopamine we need, so we have to create our own. The goal is no longer finish the project. The new goal is don't break the chain. You get a little dopamine hit, a small win, just for showing up and marking an X on the calendar. Tracking that streak creates a whole new reward loop. The dopamine now comes from the act of being consistent, not from the fantasy of being finished. You are literally hacking your own reward system.
So when you put all of this together, your relationship with motivation it fundamentally changes. You stop seeing it as the thing you need to have, and you start seeing it for what it actually is, just a signal. And this is the ultimate takeaway. Stop chasing the high. Stop trying to feel motivated all the time. It's a fool's errand, because that high is designed to be temporary. The real work, The work of long-term achievement isn't about maintaining a feeling. It's about engineering a structure, a system of habits and rewards that works even on your worst days. Your success doesn't depend on the inspiration you feel at your best. It depends on the structure you have in place for when you feel your worst.
So this is the final thought I want to leave you with. That initial surge of dopamine, that incredible, intoxicating feeling of motivation, it's not the fuel for the journey. It's just the starting gun. It's the signal that tells you a new path is possible. But the journey itself, that's powered by something else entirely. It's powered by the quiet, the unsexy, and the unbelievably powerful engine of a well-designed structure. If you build the structure, the journey will take care of itself.